Welcome to All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris,
And I'm Angie.
and this is the original kitty cat. This is going to be a very fun podcast today as we delve into the origins of our modern house cats by looking at the African wildcat.
Yes, Chris, some would say this might be one of the most important animals we've covered on this podcast, maybe in human history. It probably depends on if you're team cat or team dog.
Yeah, I love them
So,
both. Love them
or
both.
team horse too. We could argue that. Well, but yes, it is definitely going to be a fun one, and you're gonna fall in love with the African wildcat for sure. Let alone their cuteness, but then also their history and how they led us to some of our favorite furry friends at home.
Yeah, and their domestication story is actually hilarious to me. We'll jump into that, but yeah, over 10,000 years ago, they started cohabitating with humans, and the African wildcat said, "You know what? I'm going to hang out with you," and how both species,
Kind
us
of.
and them, yeah,
When I feel like it.
exactly. But there's a reason for that, and that plays into that
Yeah.
domestication story. Why cats are the way they are today, because you could argue there's still wildcats that just say, I'll hang out with you.
Yes, but we'll definitely cover on the podcast too about why an African wildcat does not make a good pet. There is definitely clear behavioral differences between our domestic friends and this beautiful African wildcat. And the other cool news is the African wildcat is least concerned, according to IUCN. So that's hopeful and fun. Their population's fragmented, and we're going to talk about concerns actually with cohabitating with our domestic kitties. So we'll talk about all of that. But yeah, it's going to be a fun podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, before we get going, real quick announcement on the podcast. Angie and I are on YouTube now, so some of you are watching on YouTube.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's been in the works for quite a while because there's a lot that goes into that. But what we'd like is if you could just look for us on YouTube and subscribe. We have these podcasts now that we're recording in video format, clipping in videos of the animals. We're talking about certain behaviors, certain physiology facts. I'm trying to source that material and post it in the videos to make them educational. And we've got YouTube shorts, little factoids on each species we cover or the interviews we have. So if you can, please visit us at YouTube and subscribe to our channel. And for those of you on YouTube may notice my face is a little bit red today. Spent 10 hours, 30 miles off the coast of New Zealand. I went on a bird boat or pelagic boat, saw some of the world's most incredible birds. Did see the little blue penguins, did see common dolphins, did see a bait ball, which I just talked about with Bertie Gregory a few weeks ago. His animals up close with dolphins, which Bertie Gregory's in New Zealand right now. I keep messaging him on
fun.
Instagram. But yeah, he is. He's like an hour south of me and not hear him back. I think he's busy filming for their next series. But anyways, so I did get a little bit sunburned, but I'm going to save that story for the next species we cover because
it's a big one.
It's the biggest flying bird in the world. So we'll talk about that. I got some good footage and experiences out there and some of the challenges they're facing. But that's why I'm a little bit sunburnt today if you're watching on YouTube. But today is all about cats. I mean, come on, you got to smile when you think of cats. You have to.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
yes. I've had it my whole life, or I should say they've had me. They win.
Yes.
But yeah, they're so special. They're great. They're great pets, and they teach you a lot about yourself. That's for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. They absolutely do. And the African wildcat, I honestly can't believe we've waited 8 years to cover this.
Well, Chris, a lot of these small cats, the more I studied the African wildcat this past week, I'm like, okay, we got to do the Scottish wildcat, the sand cat. There's so many of them. What's the one, the smallest cat in the world?
The black-footed, wasn't it? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big list of cats, and we've covered kitty cats, but the big ones, it's like we did do the Paulus cat, which was pretty hilarious.
Yes,
the grumpy faced cat.
Yeah, John worked with them at the zoo. They act how they look that they act. That
Yes,
makes sense.
yes. But when you look at our domestic cats, and I've had them my whole life as pets, uh, I think I'm more their pet, right? But we'll get into that. But the African wildcat, it looks like a gray tabby cat that you would see walking down the street, which they shouldn't be outside, but or in someone's home, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
African wildcat is going to be a little bit bigger than our typical average house cat, and they can be hard to tell apart from domestic wildcats because their size and body shape and color patterns, as Chris mentioned, is pretty similar. But some distinct components is that the African wildcat has a little bit longer legs and a little bit higher at the shoulders or shoulder blades, if you will. And the coat is not super distinct from a tabby, as Chris mentioned, and it will vary depending on location and climate. And they have a pretty big range. So Chris will cover that here shortly. But in general, the coat of the African wildcat will range from a sandy to yellow gray, brown in color, with these faint tabby-like stripes, sometimes spots. But what maybe helps distinguish them from a house cat will be these pale vertical stripes on the sides around their face. And another standout feature for the African wildcat is this reddish tint on the backs of their ears. Domestic cats often lack this coloration. And the fur of the African wildcat, because where they live, is a little bit less dense and shorter than the European wildcat. That's one of their cousins we're going to talk about. Of course, with our domestic cats, their fur can be all over the place, from short to super long and puffy to none at all. So
I know.
can't really compare
Yeah.
that part. The African wildcat, depending on where they live, they may have a lighter belly color, and then their tail is thin and tapered. It's not thick and bushy like their European wildcat cousins, but it does have some distinct black rings along the length. So you'll have to go to our website or check out this YouTube video to see pictures of them because they can be pretty hard to tell from our domestic tabby. And that would be a fun game to play, like which one's which, right? Like maybe you can put up some clips like that on Instagram because it's close. That's for sure.
It is. It is. Well, they're laying down. You can't really tell the difference. But
Yeah, I feel
yeah,
like when all the videos I watch of them walking, that shoulder blades and their longer legs, I felt for me helped give it away a little bit more. And let's be honest, my domestic cat is a little bit more rotund. Sorry, Bear. I hate to throw you
I'm
under the bus
sorry.
like that, honey, but we're working on it. We're working on less food, more exercise. So I think kind of the slinkiness for me gives it away a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you see him standing, you're like, wow, okay, there's a difference there. When you look at sizes, it's just like Angie said, just a little bit bigger. Body length up to 75 centimeters or 30 inches without the tail. Or domestic cats can get up to maybe 24 inches in length, 60 centimeters. Tail length up to 15 inches long for the African wildcat, 38 centimeters. Just a little bit shorter in our domestic cats. And then, like Angie said, the shoulder height up to 14 inches or 35 centimeters for the African wildcat. Domestic cats, 9 to 12 inches, up to 30 centimeters is where they range. African wildcats, a little bit heavier. Just they're more muscular, than
Mhm.
because they're out there hunting, surviving in the wild than our little. Actually, I would say our domestic cats probably on average weigh more because they're all fat.
I
So
was gonna
it
say
just,
that's where it's a little hard
it just,
comparison. Well, then you think about the different breeds of cats too, like there's the Maine
yeah,
Coon. I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
variation there.
yeah. Our house cats tend to be really well taken care of, but
They
now,
don't think they are. They do not think they are. They will wake you up at 3 in the morning starving.
uh,
So starving.
uh, I was staying with my sister, like 3 in the morning, they're biting my feet. I'm like,
Mhm,
oh, come
mhm,
on. It's
mhm.
just
Yeah.
like 5 cats. Now, this is what surprised me. The African wildcat, and I knew like Egypt, and we'll talk about that and why I care in a second. Egypt like really honored cats and
Mhm.
and loved them, and they thought they were gods at some points.
And
The
you've been to
cats think they're
Egypt.
gods. Yes, yeah, ages
Yeah, it's
ago.
on my
Yeah,
bucket
yeah.
list. Yeah.
So the African wildcat has a wide range. I mean, all throughout Africa, but there's different subspecies. So
Right.
that I didn't quite get at first. So the nominate subspecies is North Africa, about halfway. And then you get into sub-Saharan Africa and you have the southern African wildcat. Then you have a very close relative that's considered an African wildcat in Asia. So
Yes, the Asiatic
yeah,
wildcat. Yeah.
yeah, they fall under the same species. They're just a subspecies.
Mhm.
So that is going to play an important part in their domestication, because domestication happened in Southwest Asia, like in modern day, Iraq, Iran, up that part of the Persian Gulf. So that's the African wildcat, but they're in Asia and Africa. So
Mhm.
really huge range all the way into China.
Huge range.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
India.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So all different types of terrain, savannas, forests,
Well, and
grasslands,
they're definitely supposed to be in
mountains. Yeah.
Tanzania, South Africa, places I've been before, but I didn't see them, so I need to try again.
Oh, well, if you didn't see the leopard, I don't know if you're going to see the freaking wildcat.
Oh, wow, burn. Fair enough. I
No,
know.
I didn't mean it like
I
that.
know. It's just been on my bucket list, and, the 3 times I've been there, nope.
Uh,
But it'll keep me coming back for more, those leopards, and now the African, wildcat will as well.
well, you've dunked on me plenty of times. You've seen, I don't know how many
That
species in Africa.
touche,
Yeah,
touche, yeah.
yeah. I've just
We're
been to
gonna go
Egypt, so
together as a big family group.
yeah.
Pip, pack your
Yes.
bags. John, let's save
No.
for it, yeah.
Yeah, we will. We'll do an All Creatures podcast tour or something in Kruger. But yeah, huge range and huge variety of habitats. I mean, we kind of know that when you talk about domestic cats today, they've traveled the world with us. They've populated the world with us. They can be, the feral cats are a big problem. We'll talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that today. We want to celebrate cats, really, but
Yes.
we will talk about feral cats and why they're an issue and what you can do. But like here in New Zealand, again, I was on this bird boat yesterday with a bunch of bird nerds. I'm in that group. Me, Jesse, my good friend Jesse, and Jesse Golden. And we're talking about birds. Like, what do you do for 10 hours on a boat as it putters out 30 miles offshore? You talk about birds and birds in New Zealand and like Stewart Island, which is the South Island. There's an island there. The Kakapo and the surrounding islands are like really important conservation areas for us. But the feral cats on Stewart Island have been devastating to kiwi, all of our native birds. So that just shows you how adaptable they are, because they
Oh, yeah.
live in these harsh climates. Stewart Island's frigid. It's
Mhm.
freezing. Subantarctic almost island. Cats are doing just fine there.
Well, yeah, there were feral
Yeah.
cats when I lived in Chicago. I mean, they're here in Florida. Uh, they figure it
Yeah.
out. They figure a way. Mhm.
Yeah. They're very highly adaptable. So, but again, celebrating these animals, these are our origins of one of our favorite pets.
Mhm.
And domestic cats in my own personal life, since I was a baby, throughout my life, my neighbor's cat who's adopted us now, who always comes over, because that's why I said he's a little chunky and I feed him too much and I get yelled at by Pip and my family here, like, stop feeding him. I'm like, oh, I love him. He's cute. Um, they do bring a lot of joy. And uh, cats have played an important part in human history, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, they've done quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in wildcats, even in particular, they have a key part in culture, folklore, natural history of Africa. It's just their presence is so connected from the first cats that we domesticated thousands of years ago. So it is a deep rooted connection. And when we look at their ecosystem role, too, the African wildcat is super important. They help control population of rodents and all other small mammals. So this is like a natural management system that benefits both helps agricultural farms, help prevent diseases, and they're a mid-level predator. And we'll talk more about that in nutrition and how they hunt, but they help maintain the balance of these food webs within their ecosystems, right? Not no African wildcats, too many rodents, too many diseases. So it is really they play a really important middleman role in our ecosystems. And I mean, honestly, anybody who's had a cat knows how they can help control the rodent and pest population. One of my favorite stories is about John's cat, Phoenix. Love her, and we had just moved in together, and we were in an apartment in Chicago on the third floor, a walk up, and she's just doing her thing. I had another cat, Buster, and he had two cats, Phoenix and Griffin, all who have passed now, bless their hearts. But they were minding their own business, and sure enough, one day, Phoenix leaves me a little present in the bathroom of a rodent she caught. And I'm like, I am on the third floor. Like, I've never had rodent problems. Like, what is happening here? But it turns out they were doing construction on the basement level of the building. So the rodents that are probably living in the walls shimmied up to the third floor, and they jumped out in the wrong apartment. So I was very glad to have John, but I was even more glad to have Phoenix at that point because she was keeping those rodents at bay.
It's interesting you tell that story, Angie, because that is kind of the origins of our connection with cats is pest control. So with human civilization around 10,000 years ago, and so this started in the Fertile Crescent. So the Fertile Crescent really is Syria, north in Iraq, and then going into Persia, down into the Persian Gulf. So Iran and Kuwaiti area. So in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers is really where human civilization began. This is where farming began. This is where we started domesticating cows and some other livestock species. Now, chickens, that's, I guess, another bird we'll have to cover at some point. Chickens were domesticated all over the place, I think in Asia, too. So that's where they were kind of the origins of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And then horses, we know, was like the Eurasian steppe. And then donkeys were in Africa. Dogs, we know, was the wolves, like cohabitating with humans and human hunters in parts of Europe and Asia. So cats were, and so particularly the African wildcat in the Fertile Crescent started hanging around humans because human activity, like in Chicago or Atlanta or in Florida or in New Zealand, where rodents are, the cats realized, oh, I can kind of hang around here and I'll get some easy meals. Because storing grain back then, so they would grow, say, wheat, ancient wheat, and then they would get the grain and build these granaries, would attract rodents. And so the African wildcats would hang out at these granaries and start to eat the mice. And that started our relationship with them. So domestication, we know that the best evidence we have is the silver fox studies that were done in the old Soviet Union. It started in the 1950s, where it took about 50 generations to breed the wild out of foxes, where their tails curled, their coat patterns changed.
Yeah,
they
they started
became
getting
super
traits of the domestic dog, basically.
Yeah.
The cute
So we know that
floppy
took
ears.
yeah. And that took about 50 generations. So we know that's roughly what it takes to domesticate an animal. So cats, again, breeding quickly, probably quicker than dogs. But the ones that were friendliest towards humans, they hung out with us more. So we didn't create the domestic cat. The domestic cat, in essence, created itself.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
we
Well,
didn't train them. Yeah, it's so funny.
And I would even back up, though, before like the friendliest. It was probably the ones that were brave enough to stay close enough to the granaries or to the humans that then did well and survived. And then the ones that were friendly enough or brave to get close to humans and get that payoff of surviving.
Food. Yeah, and food.
Mm-hmm.
Letting them scratch them and becoming less fearful of humans. And so that relationship started 10,000 years ago, and it really hasn't changed because cats are fiercely independent. They are fiercely independent. So
yes, they are.
that's why we say the cats, domestic cats, they basically domesticated themselves. We didn't. They did. And since that relationship began, they spread out, the domestic cats, down into ancient Egypt, where like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, they were sacred symbols. If you killed a cat, that was punished by death. They have mummified them.
Hmm.
Certain cats became gods. They were divine. So they became a real important part of the Egyptian culture back then. And you see it in hieroglyphics and findings. And the one time, like you said, I had been to Egypt and the Egyptian Museum. I got to get back because they spent like $1 billion to redo it.
Wow. Okay.
And they had tons of mummified cats. Like
So
the
cool.
cats were mummified next to pharaohs and
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
Egyptians. Yeah. Then cats were sailing the seven seas with us. So even in early days of the Mediterranean, where traders, because civilization expanded, and you had trading from Africa into Europe, see ancient Greece, ancient Rome,
Yeah.
cats spread out with us into the British Isles, then across the oceans into the Americas. But when they sailed with the sailors, they were beneficial because the cats were catching rodents that were on board. And, it was a companionship for the sailors on board, but the cats were there to really control pests and were really critical in keeping disease down
Yeah.
and things like that. Now, when you turn, this is a danger, this is a warning story. You've got to protect your cats and love them. So we've got to be careful with conservation. But during the Middle Ages, black cats became like signs of witchcraft
Hmm.
and the devil, and cats were evil because they're so feisty. So they killed tons of cats in medieval Europe. There was this large killing of cats, especially the black ones. So what happened is rats exploded the population, where rats were everywhere, and then the Black Plague hit Europe. That came from Asia through fleas on the backs of rats that in turn killed up to like 50% of the population in Europe in like the
Crazy.
1350s. And because there was not enough cats to,
Hmm.
to, to keep
Control
the
the rodents.
population down.
Yeah.
So, so we've got to be careful. We need these
Yes. Well,
cats.
I am single-handedly making up for it. Buster and now Bear Bear are black cats. They're actually the tuxedo
Uh,
cats. I love
uh,
tuxedo cats. I think they have so much
yeah.
personality. But yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. So they have become really important in our survival, our growth as a species, our evolvement as a species. Yet there's cats on every continent now,
Yeah,
except Antarctica. Yeah,
there's over like 30 breeds of them. So now there's a cat
yeah,
for everybody. Big
yeah.
ones, medium-sized ones, smaller ones, hairless ones, short hair, long hair. I can't name all 30 breeds like Taylor Swift. I could probably name like 5. But yeah, I mean, and then of course there's just the regular, just the regular mixed cat, domestic cat.
So with the spread of the domestic cat, they are probably one of the top killers of wildlife in the world, next to
Yes.
humans, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So this is the danger story with them. Being that they've spread out all around the world, it's really in your domestic cat. So the cat that's adopted us, Ollie, he's an indoor outdoor cat, and I'll talk about why keeping him outdoors isn't good for them either. But I haven't seen him kill any birds, but I've seen him trying to get up into the trees where the birds were
Yeah.
nesting and stuff. It's the feral cats running wild in areas around New Zealand where they're killing native birds or these islands that aren't used to predators like the cat. Australia's got a huge problem. We've talked about that, killing like bilbies and other native wildlife. They are a scourge on the landscape, these
Well,
feral cats.
and our birds are in trouble. We'll talk more about that soon in a podcast coming up. But yeah, so every little bit does count. And I mean, obviously, there's a difference between how much wildlife a feral cat eats that's never inside, never given any human food, versus a domestic cat that's let outside and maybe a little chonky. But still, they have natural instincts to hunt and they'll take down prey for fun sometimes.
Mhm.
So even our domestic cats that are fed very comfortably in our houses should stay in our houses
Yes. Yep.
because they might not eat a lot of outdoor preying birds, but they will eat some, or I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
they'll eat it, but they'll kill it, even for sport.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So keep them
And I've
in.
seen
Hmm.
my own kitties do that, like kill native lizards
Oh,
and
yeah.
other
Yeah.
reptiles. Yeah, it's estimated that feral cats kill about 2.4 billion birds per year, up to 12 billion mammals per year. So
Crazy. Yeah.
yeah, they are they
They're predators, and they're
so
very
torn.
good
Yeah,
at it.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what are we doing about it? I know here in New Zealand, and it is a little bit controversial, is we do have removal programs where they are being trapped and euthanized, things like that. Really, especially these island ecosystems where they're really devastating, is where we need to target them. Australia is in a world of hurt because it's such a large, massive landmass that it's going to be hard for them to control cat
Contain them
populations.
all. Mhm.
But again, what you can do, Angie already said, keep them indoors or enclosed outdoor spaces.
Spay and neuter them.
Perfect. Spay and neuter that was the next one. You can put bells on their collars. I did this with my cats.
Yeah, my cat has a
So,
bell,
yeah,
because she likes to go out on the screen, and sometimes we get porch, and sometimes we even get birds trapped in our screen and porch.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
bell is helpful. Mhm.
yeah. It alerts.
Except for
Uh,
me at 3 in the morning.
yes, I know.
But
That's the hard part.
I'm willing. It's a
Yeah,
risk I'm willing to
yeah,
to do. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, so it is the spay and neuter your pets. Keep them indoors. And also, um, like Angie said, you put a bell or a bright collar on them. And outdoor cats, and I have this in age later down the podcast, but outdoor cats don't live as long. They live like half as
Mm.
long than
Oh,
indoor
for
cats.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they pick up disease. It's a lot harder on them. It's a lot more stressful on them. So living outdoors isn't good for your domestic cat. They need to be indoors and entertained and fed. So, but overall, I mean, still, domestic cats have really benefited humanity over the last 10,000 years. They've done a lot for us, so we need to appreciate them. But remember, this is a partnership of trust, not control, that we didn't tame them through force. It's basically our relationship with cats is an understanding of it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yes,
Okay,
they will
it's a
make
good
you
break.
earn their love. They're very selective. Definitely, we could do a whole podcast series on the behavioral differences of dogs and cats. So,
Okay, so we'll jump into evolution. We've done cats, African wildcats, not much different. They are carnivores. Remember, you have the feliforms and the caniforms. So the feliforms became cats. Hyenas, I'll just jump to the chase. I always ask you that every single time we do a cat. Which one's a feliform? Hyenas, like you would think hyenas are dogs, but no,
mhm.
they fall into the cat tree or the feliform tree. And then you have our canids, which bears, seals, others fall in there. So roughly 270 and growing in species as we do more genetic testing and split them out a little bit. Then you get down into the family, the Felidae. So 56 genre, 114 species. Angie and I have barely touched the surface we did a lot of the big cats, but that's a lot of those little cats and medium-sized cats that we still can do over the next few years. The domestic cat origins is from the African wildcat, but they are closely related to the European wildcat
Mhm.
because I got confused. I thought, oh, they're domesticated from the European wildcat, but
Well,
they're
I'm
not.
glad. Remember, I
Yeah,
texted you
yeah,
midweek, and I was like,
yeah,
"Is it the European wildcat?" I already asked
yeah,
like 20 slides. It's
yeah.
the African wildcat, and I'm like, ah. But then I'm like, well, there's a lot of similarities. They're very closely related. So yeah.
Very, very close. And they're all from the genre Felis.
Hmm.
So the differences between the African wildcat, European wildcat, African wildcat is Felis libica, and then the European wildcat is Felis sylvestris. So they're very closely related, but not the
Yes.
same.
No, and
And
visually they
yeah,
look a little different. The European wildcat has more of a poofy tail
yeah, yeah,
because of where it
yeah.
lives, I think.
And they're near threatened.
Yes,
They,
yes.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
Chinese
and
mountain cat too is also endangered, I believe.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of these smaller cats are, and a
I
lot of that's
know.
driven with, well, you have feral cats out competing them, or feral cats interbreeding with some of them,
Well, and disease, we
and
didn't really talk about that. That's
disease. Yeah,
another reason to not let your cat out. I mean,
yeah,
obviously most house cats are vaccinated, but our feral cat population typically isn't, and then they can not only interbreed with some of these wildcats, but then also give them diseases.
yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah, passing that on too. All right, so we look at the species African wildcat. There's 3 subspecies. So the Felis libica is the one that's in North Africa and the Middle East.
Hmm.
Felis libica cafra, that's
Hmm.
Southern Africa. Then Felis libica ornata is the Asian wildcat. So that goes to the Middle East to Central and South Asia. It's a huge range, huge
It's
range.
huge.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
huge.
yeah. And the canids, sorry. So again, we always go back to the Miacids. Those are the earliest predators that we know, about 60 million years. The feliforms and canids, they diverged around 42 million years ago. The earliest cats we see in the fossil records showing up around 35 million years ago. And the Felidae family shows up about 10 to 15 million years ago in the fossil record. Now, the Felis lineage, so these are our smaller cats. They have, the sand cat, the black-footed cat, this African wildcat, diverged about 4 million years ago, and then they spread out, right, in Asia, Europe, and down into Africa. The emergence of the African wildcat is thought to be about 2 million years. So they've been around for quite a while in a changing ecosystem of, we have the ice age, and then we have, periods of drying and deserts. And again, like domestic cats show us, they're highly evolved,
Oh yeah.
highly adaptable to all sorts of environments, and they will prey on almost anything to survive, and they do a really good job at it, and they breed quickly too, right? So that's another benefit to them, their ability to survive some of these changes the last couple million years, and haven't changed much
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
those millions of years, which is insane. It still
Yeah.
blows my mind that length of time these cats have found their niche, and they're doing just fine. Yeah. Okay. So jump into the physiology. Uh, Life cycles in the wild, like I said, they live about 10 years. It's
Okay.
tough out there.
Yeah.
Under human care, the African wildcat can live up to almost double that to 20 years. So think about it. I mean, you're getting free medical again. You're getting fed everything. You don't have to hunt. You don't have predators.
You're
Probably
vaccinated. Yeah. All those things.
vaccinated, enrichment. Life's good. Life's good if you're an African wildcat.
You're
With
hissing at
that,
your keepers
yeah,
still.
yeah, yeah. It's true. So Angie, if you had to guess, because I had to find a fun fact for this podcast, because I don't think I've covered this before, but the longest living domestic cat, if you had to guess, how old do you think it would be?
Um, I feel like 20 is very old for a cat, but you're leading me up to think that it's way higher than that. So I'll say 26 years.
26 years? Okay, higher. Yeah, higher.
40. 40.
A little bit lower.
Okay. 38.
30, yeah. Ding, ding, ding. And 3 days. 38 and 3 days.
Wow. But that's a
Yeah.
lot of lifetimes. That cat didn't have
Yes.
9 lives. It had like a lot of
Like
lives.
50
Yeah.
lives, yeah.
Yeah.
So this was Cream Puff, born in
Oh.
1967 on August 3rd, passed away on August 6th, 2005. The Jake Perry, this guy must be some incredible cat owner, because he had
Mm-hmm.
another famously long-lived cat named Grandpa Rex Allen, who lived to be 34. Holds the Guinness World's Record of the oldest cat ever recorded. And Guinness like researches all this, and
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
wasn't cloned or anything.
Yeah. It's
38.
crazy.
And they think this is why, Mr. Perry, who did an awesome job, had a homemade high protein diet, including eggs, turkey, bacon, broccoli, and cream. though. So not necessarily recommended today. You probably don't want to feed that to your cat, but had a
Yeah.
really great diet, really a lot of enrichment. So cat toys and treats. And he ran a home theater for cats. He kept them stimulated all the time and lived entirely indoors. So there's a key point there too. So didn't have all those threats. So again, your typical house cat can live up to 16,
Hmm.
hoping. I
Hmm.
know a lot of mine did.
Yeah.
Indoor cats can live up to 20. And those outdoor cats, 5 to 10 years, that's it.
But yeah,
Yeah,
if they're
that's
lucky.
it.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So you really, really got to take care of these kitties and keep them inside. So I may just adopt Ollie inside, but then I think my dogs will go nuts. He's so cute. Okay. Fast cats, they're fast. Have you seen? You've
Yeah.
seen domestic cats run, but these African wildcats can get up to 37 miles per hour,
Oh,
up to
that's cooking. Hmm.
60 kilometers. Well, they have those long legs and that hip structure. Yeah. So I don't think your bear could run that fast.
No, bless her heart. She could not run that fast.
Maybe to the fridge,
I
but
think I could actually outrun her. I'm gonna be honest. Would that be a good challenge?
I did see Bear earlier this year. Yeah, she's looking good. She's looking
She's
good.
ridiculous.
Yeah, but again, they're not cheetahs. They're not that fast, and they don't have the endurance to keep that speed up. It's more stealth speed. Their hunting is to burst, and then they can leap 6.5 feet, which we know cats. It's almost 2 meters. We know they're very agile, very quick, and then, but again, short bursts of speed.
Mhm.
They miss their prey, then they'll
Yeah.
stop and rest. Now, one of the things I want to ask is, especially with the African wildcat, or I guess the domestic cats have carried these traits on, is how they survive in like extreme heat or
Yeah.
arid deserts. I think
Mhm.
Africa, and I've been to parts of the Middle East, flying to Europe and seen, obviously everybody's seen videos today, and you can watch it, but that uh,
Yeah.
the deserts of the Middle East are very hot, very arid. So these cats, like some of these other species we've covered, they don't need to go and drink out of a lake or a river. They get moisture from their prey. So when they eat the prey, they're highly efficient at absorbing the water. So a single mouse or a bird provides enough metabolic water, so that's breaking down the fats and proteins to sustain them. And what you find out is, again, form to functions kidneys, which we have a pair of kidneys which help filter out blood to pass into urine. They're extremely efficient, so they conserve like almost every drop of water, and if they do urinate, it's highly, highly concentrated. Probably stinks. It's probably why cat urine smells so bad. It just is.
And you're starting to
Yeah.
bring up reasons why wild cats would not make good house pets.
Yes. Oh, it's got to be so stinky. Oh, it's got to
All
be
of it,
so.
yeah. Let
Yeah,
alone
that
their
urine.
spray and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's very, very concentrated. Very, very concentrated. So their body system's set up for that. Then their behavior, which Angie will cover, but they're nocturnal to avoid the heat. So we'll talk about that. Their fur, think about it. That coat, that sandy gray, blends in really well. So camouflage helps reflect sunlight. Ears helps, radiate heat out to detect prey. That body is very slender and unlike a lot of our domestic cats because they're wildcats, but lean. So like those long legs, so they're able
Mhm.
to dissipate heat that way. And then again, they eat almost anything, pretty opportunistic. So that's how they survive these harsh environments, especially the really arid, dry environments. But cats have a lot of superpowers, Angie.
They
Like a
really
lot.
do.
We've covered some of them, but
I don't know
yeah.
if I could pick a favorite. I mean, you mentioned their ears a little bit. Well, their hearing is really good. Their little ears have 20 tiny muscles that allow them to rotate and swivel their ears, allowing them to pinpoint where a sound is coming from almost instantly to then pounce on it. And they can hear high-pitched noises up to 25,000 vibrations per second, and even these ultrasonic little squeaks from mice that us people can't hear. Thank gosh, we can't hear them in our walls. But it just really helps them be a super efficient predator, and they will catch things that you've never seen or heard. And African wildcat sight is also very good. They have forward facing eyes, which is a typical sign of a predator, think us or like an eagle. Uh, that helps give them really good depth perception, which can help them judge how they need to pounce and then land on the prey. So they can't see right under their noses, but they can see a little bit more out, and that's probably why they can jump so well and hit the prey with great accuracy. Now, Chris, what I found fascinating with the wildcats is their night vision isn't super impressive, uh, but it does help them hunt in dim light. So if you think of like dusk and dawn, so they will come out and hunt then as well. So yeah, and then smell. I love to talk about smells. Our dogs are super smellers. Chris blew me away about bear smelling facts. The
Mm-hmm.
more we study we find out our horses are super smellers, but the African wildcat falls into another super smelling animal. They have 200 million, yeah, it's million, odor sensors and receptors, which is in their nasal passage, which is far more than humans. So that helps them find prey as well. Uh, and then it helps them just excel in their hunting. Yeah, they're just really good with their senses. And of course, everybody who's been licked by a cat comes across a little bit different than when your dog licks you because the African wildcats, their tongue, similar to our domestic counterparts, is covered with the tiny projections called papillae. And they use that for grooming and licking the meat off of bones. So it does have a purpose besides whatever happened with your toes at your sister's house when the cat
Yeah, God, yeah.
was going after them. Yeah, maybe they're thinking your toes were like little meatballs that they could lick the meat off of.
They were
But
crazy.
yeah. And now, Chris, fun
Yeah,
fact: we always do this when we cover a felid.
yeah.
African wildcats, do they purr?
I would say these ones absolutely 100% purr.
Yeah,
I would
I mean,
bet. I would
they're
gamble
close to
everything on it. Yeah,
our the cousins, the
yeah,
domestic cat,
yeah,
so
yeah.
they do purr, and they are able to purr because they have a special vocal cord setup, that our big cats lack. And so when we think of cats that purr, we tend to think of the smaller wildcats, and that evolutionary branch of the tree. So the African wildcat, European wildcat, jungle cat, we need to cover them. They're beautiful. Domestic cat, bobcat, lynx, cheetahs, I'll talk about that in a second. Ocelot, they have what's known as a true purr. Big cats, lions, tigers, leopards, jags. They roar, or tigers, chef.
That was a good one. That was good. That was a good one.
Medium. But they can't produce a continuous purr. And some of the large cats, like the cheetahs and the cougars or the pumas or mountain lions, depending on where you're from, they can make a purr-like noise, but only during breathing out, not when breathing in. So remember, our African wildcat or domestic cat, the purring is continuous when they breathe in and when they breathe out. And the physiology behind the purring mechanism is the sound is produced when these special pads and folds in the vocal cords vibrate due to rapid twitching of the laryngeal muscles. And this is powered by a neural connection in the brain. So the hyoid apparatus, that's this bone kind of below the tongue, if you will, that has to be fully ossified as well. And which it is, of course, in the truly purring cats, like our African wildcat. So fun fact of the day. Of
Was
course, us humans always associate purring with pleasure. I know that's when
mm-hmm.
my cat does it. But wildcats will purr when they're content, sometimes when they're injured, which is really
Oh, okay.
interesting, and sometimes when they're giving birth and when they're frightened. So it's not always associated with pleasure. And I
That's
think there's
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I think with domestic cats, that's true. I remember my sister telling me when her cat was injured, her domestic cat, it would purr sometimes, which really struck her as surprising because it was, not feeling well. So, yeah.
That's interesting. That's something I learned something else new today. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've never
Yeah.
done the domestic cat, so once we'll have to
Yeah.
look back, that's like an N of 1. Molly, love you. But, yeah, so, we'll have to look into that, but definitely wildcats are known to purr besides just pleasure. So,
Well,
yeah.
okay. Okay. Well, one thing I love about cats, and it brings me back to this commercial. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but it was the researcher in the lab, and he has a cat in his arms, and the cat's on its back, and he drops it, and it always, falls on its feet,
Mhm.
and he keeps going lower and lower and lower to see what that the bottom minimum is, and like the cat always flips on its front feet, so he developed this machine to have the cat keep spinning to create energy. So it's like infinite energy. It's a very funny commercial. It came out like 5-10 years ago. So cats are very flexible, like incredibly flexible. And we
Mhm.
covered this in a cat some point, but uh, the reason is, just to recap why, is they do have an extra vertebrate in their spine compared to us. Their vertebrae are elastic. They're discs, so they're very elastic. Where ours, like, anybody's had a back injury, like if you shift your disc, it causes incredible pain, and our discs aren't meant to be that flexible. Where cats, they are elastic. They do move, and so they have a very loose spine connection. Then they have the muscles in there that make it flexible. Their tail's flexible. So that's why when you do cat pose, anybody does yoga or stretching, the arch, they can really stretch up. Like you watch a cat, and it's like, I guess, like,
The Halloween
uh,
cat or the angry
yeah, the
cat. Yeah.
classic, yeah, the classic image of the cat with its back, like really arched back. That spine is really arched really well.
Yeah.
When we do our little cat stretch, we have like a little bend, and it's like, ooh, it feels good. It's a good stretch, but the
Oh,
cat's
I do
like
mine
a tent.
every morning. I
Yeah,
literally roll over and do 10 to
your little
20
cat stretch.
cycles.
Yeah,
Cat and
it's
cow
good though.
rotate.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
gotta take care of
yeah,
our back. It's like you said,
yeah.
it's not as flexible, but movement's medicine, so every little bit helps.
So yeah, so that flexibility gives them that midair adjustment where they can just right themselves and generally land
Yeah,
on their feet,
it's
or
crazy.
if they do fall from heights, they're able to cushion that where it could be devastating to that. Also, the rib cage is flexible as well. So incredible predator. Like, again, 35 million years in the making, these cats.
Sure.
And
Well, and I forgot to
yeah,
even talk about whiskers, right? Our cats are
yeah,
known
yeah,
for their
yeah,
whiskers, and the African wildcat, same thing. And the whiskers are just like these built-in sensors. And the more we're researching whiskers across all species, we're learning that there's just tons of neurons in that area and that actually are more sensitive than just general hair throughout an animal's body. And it basically helps the cat measure, can I squeeze through this gap here? Can is their prey moving in the grass? These whiskers will really help them quickly decide whether they should change directions or pounce. So they're not just for looking cute. They need their whiskers, and their whiskers are really important.
yeah. Never trim their whiskers ever,
No, no, no,
ever,
no.
ever,
Yeah.
ever,
Mhm.
ever, ever. Yeah,
But if you
they're
find
really.
one on the floor, which we do once in a while, on my family, you always talk about and make a wish.
Yes, there you go. There you go. There you go. Okay, so this predator that has evolved extreme hunter. I mean, we see it. We see it around
Well,
the world.
yeah, and they're a generalist, right? Like of course, they love mouse and rats and other rodents, but yeah, they're not picky. Bear will go after geckos and lizards when they come in the house, like nobody's business. I think more for sport than anything else. But the African wildcat, gerbils, hares, small to medium-sized birds. It's been known to attack baby antelopes or fawns, uh, even our domestic lambs when they're young. So, yeah, reptiles, invertebrates,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
total generalists. Like, I mean, that's why
Insects.
they've been
Yeah,
insects. Yeah,
yeah.
that's why they've been able to radiate and live in all these different areas because, well, they're not picky and they are amazing hunters.
Yeah. All right. So my next big question. Okay, these things are great little hunters for where they live and the habitats they belong in. How do they survive? I've asked this from the beginning of the podcast, like when we cover lions, leopards, cheetah. I mean, even leopards and cheetah have trouble with some of the larger predators surviving. Leopards climbing trees, which Angie, one day we'll see in Africa. I know
I
you will.
will, I
I
will.
know you
And you
do.
all hear about it.
Yes, that's been a running joke in the podcast from the very beginning, where Angie's gone to Africa, and the one thing she hasn't seen that she's wanted to see is a
3
leopard.
times.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and our
Lots of
good
different
friend
countries.
who I just saw, Laura, your really good friend who was in Africa, said, "Oh, I've seen
Yeah,
like 5 leopards."
yeah. I know, I should have gone
She
on
says,
safari with her after our
yeah,
conference.
yes, she saw 5, and you saw no. Poor Angie. We'll get you there. We'll get you there to see them. But how do they survive? These little cats in these harsh environments? Because jackals, caracals, servals, hyenas, lions, leopards, tigers, large raptors will can take them. Even snakes. So how do they do it? How do they survive? Well, like I said, the wild's very harsh for them. They do breed quickly, which Angie will cover here in a minute. But good stealth and camouflage.
Yes, camouflage is
They,
huge.
yeah, they operate times of at night and
Mhm.
twilight where it's hard to see them. They are solitary. They're secretive. So they do hide in burrows and hollowed out logs and, dense shrub or tall grass. And, they have some defensive behaviors. I don't think a lion's going to care that much, but
No, no.
it's
But
tough. It's
yeah,
tough. Yeah.
depending on the size of the creature going after them, the African wildcat will raise their hair to seem larger, to intimidate their opponent. They may growl and hiss. So they might scare a medium-sized predator off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's harsh. I mean, it's incredible. They've done this for 2 million years, and there's been, lots of different predators come and go over that time span. And these little cats, comparatively,
They're just
do.
stealthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can dart in and out, move quickly, like you said, go under burrows if they need to. And yeah, and they're great hunters. So yeah. And then some of them decided to move in with us. So they're really smart as
Yeah.
well.
Those are the smart ones, right? I got some. This is great.
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
mean, but yeah, what other behaviors? I mean, it's cat behavior. It's just such a
Yeah, cat
fascinating
is
field.
I mean, once again, we need to do a whole podcast. Chris and I have talked about doing either domestic dog or the domestic cat, but behaviors are going to be very similar to domestic cat as far as social affiliative, friendly behaviors, and then social aggression, hissing, clawing, biting, that kind of thing, retreating. But do keep in mind the African wildcat is solitary, unless it's coming together for breeding or when a wildcat mama is raising its young. But the vocalizations of the African wildcat make a lot of sounds, right? So they have their hisses, they have their yowls, especially the female and estrus. They have the affectionate purring. They have little squeaks that they might use to talk to their kittens to say, be quiet, predators are around. So they definitely have vocalizations that they make. And their meow, I don't think it's as prominent as Bear's meow in the morning when, when I'm doing my cat or cow. I'm just trying to wake up and she is screeching, meowing. Yeah, I'm sure they probably make that sound as well, but they can go find their own food. They don't have to wait for me to give it to them. And of course, they have visual cues that we already talked about as far as raising their hair on their back and just kind of everybody who's lived with a cat knows that cats have very subtle facial expressions that will just slay you.
Yes.
Very subtle. So I think African wildcats, especially to each other, are no different. So they communicate with these facial visual cues, also with their tails, right? Like rapid movements of the tails may may show that they're angry. Lowering of the tail might show that they're more relaxed, that kind of thing. But yes. Now, when it comes to scent communication, wildcats are similar to our domestic cats, and anybody who's had an unneutered male cat
Mm.
in their house is very familiar with why that's a horrible idea, because wildcats mark their territories. They spray strong urine on objects throughout their home ranges. So this is definitely why African wildcats would not make a good pet at home. You don't want your curtains and your bedside sheets sprayed up. But of course, where African wildcats live, they need this scent communication to mark their territories to say, stay out. I don't want anybody in here. and as a form of hello, I do want you here, like if the female is an estrus, and that way a male can track her down and find her. So these pheromones are really, really important communication between one another and other species as well. The African wildcats have scent glands on their foreheads, around their mouths. That's why they'll, like your domestic cat, rub their face a lot. They also have scent glands at the base of their tails, and they can be really stinky. So
Yeah.
keep that
Yeah.
in mind, right?
Oh,
Uh,
cat urine it's just so concentrated.
it's
Like
so
any litter
powerful.
box. Yeah. It's just yeah.
Yes, my,
Yeah.
bless my Phoenix, kitty, my gray fluffy kitty, bless her pumpkin heart. That was John's cat that he had when we got together, and she was gray and fluffy and gorgeous, but she was an inappropriate eliminator, which
Mm-hmm.
means she often did not like to use her litter box. One point in time, I think we had 2 or 3 cats and, like, 16 litter boxes. Just kidding, not 16.
Yeah,
They
it
say
seems
you're
like
supposed to
that.
have 1 more litter box than you have cats, so I think we had, like, 4 litter boxes in our house. It was and that was, I think, in the apartment, actually. So, yes, it was spent about 15 years, well, maybe not quite 15, but close to 12 years, cleaning her urine out of several of my, bedspreads and
Just
couches.
yeah.
I
Stinks.
mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting. A lot of cats, domestic cats, end up in shelters because of this inappropriate elimination. A lot of people aren't like myself and John and willing to, I guess, deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah. But she was worth it. She was pretty, but boy, could she. It's hard. You have to buy like special enzymes and all this stuff.
Now we've alluded quite a bit to it, but quick breeders, right? Like it just seems like cats compared to dogs, like they reproduce very quickly in the very short generation interval.
They do, yes, yes, and so African wildcats are somewhat similar. I'll highlight some of the differences, but African wildcats will breed at different times of the year depending on where they live and the local climate. And such since they have such a huge range, it just depends. But in general, if we're gonna just say on average, an African wildcat is interested in breeding sometime between September and March, somewhere in there. And when a female wildcat goes into estrus, um, I'll never forget when Bear Bear adopted our family, she came to us. She had not been spayed yet, and so I saw her in estrus once, and it was a sight beholden to me.
Aren't they like a hot mess, like an
They
absolute hot
are the
mess? Yeah,
hottest
yeah,
mess you've ever
yeah.
seen when they're in estrus. Their
Oh,
estrus is very how do I describe it? It's just very forward facing. Like they are letting
mhm.
everybody, especially males, but everybody know that they are cycling, that they're high
Yes.
estrogen, and that they will be receptive. So there's a lot of rolling around. There's a lot of presenting. There's a lot of yowling and just, I mean, they seem almost sick. It's crazy, but obviously we got her spayed right away, and that's never happened since then. But now when a African wildcat female goes into estrus, because of the increased estrogen, because of the pheromones, which the males are super, the male cat and his super sniffer ability can sense that and then follow the female wherever she is. A lot of local male wildcats, depending on how many there are in the area, they'll actually congregate near a female in estrus, and they will compete for access to her. So there may be some fighting off of males, and the more dominant male, the tougher, the bigger, the stronger male will probably gain breeding rights to the female. And so the males are kind of not, they're kind of ugly too, right? When they're fighting, they're yowling, and cat fights are just not fun. So, I mean, it hasn't happened lately where we live, but in times past, I've lived in different places where you would hear male cats fighting in the middle of the night, and it was probably over access to a female. It's loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and but a female wildcat is not super picky. She will breed with multiple males per estrus cycle, and so there's sometimes multiple paternity in a single litter. That is possible. So, similar to our domestic cats. And when a female African wildcat is pregnant, her gestation's pretty short, as Chris and I were talking about. It's about 56 to 68 days. So, what's that? 2 months?
Yeah, a little bit over
Yeah,
2
a
months,
little
yeah.
over 2.5
Yeah.
months. So the African wildcat will then give birth to 1 to 8 young, but with an average of about 3.4 in a litter. So that is smaller than a domestic cat. I mean, domestic cats can have a lot. Uh, and the female wildcat will choose, she's smart, she'll choose to give birth in a protected burrow, often spaced under rocks or in dense vegetation or just out of the way. And that's how she helps keep her kittens alive. The male wildcat is not going to win the Father of the Year or of the Century award. He doesn't do much, but because the kittens are born with their eyes closed, they're unable to walk, they're just hanging out in this den or burrow, I should say, and the female wildcat has to not only hunt to get enough food so she can lactate and meet her high energy demand, but then she also has to nurse and care for the young in their den from about 4 to 12 weeks. The African wildcat kittens, their cute little eyes will open when they're about 10 days old, and they're just really interested in nursing till they're about 30 days old. They stay with their mom and they learn these really critical hunting strategies and survival skills from about until they're about 4 to 10 months. So that's a much bigger commitment. If you think about our domestic cats, they're usually separated from mom, when they're 8 weeks
Early
old.
on,
At
yeah.
least we do.
Yeah.
That's what we
Yeah.
do. Now, feral cats, I'm not sure. That's actually a good question as to how long a feral kitten would stay with mom. But yeah, so the
Mhm.
African wild kittens stay with mama for a while. And once again, the range across the different subspecies and the terrain is about 4 to 10 months. But it takes them a while to become independent and learn all these really critical hunting skills and how to be stealthy and how to not get attacked yourself. Uh, but once they learn these skills, the mom will basically drive them away so they can create their own range and become independent. And when they're 10 to 11 months old, so under a year, the females will become sexually reproductive. And males can range from 9 months old to 22 months old, probably depending on where they live and how many males are competing for access to females in the area. So, pretty quick generation turnaround there. So the biggest difference is, yes, probably that the African wild cats do have smaller litters on
Yeah.
average. Yeah,
Yeah. So not like taking over the world just quite yet.
not yet.
Cats are on their cat. They're on their way.
Yeah.
So with all of that, they're least concerned, as we said earlier. So they're doing okay, but they do have threats. So it's not like they're in the clear and it's like,
No.
oh, happy days for them. It's,
No,
you
and
know,
the range is
y-
so huge, and
big.
I
Yeah.
don't know about
Mm.
you, but I couldn't actually find a population count.
No, no, but that, they're on conservationist radar, especially the cat specialist groups with IUCN
Mhm.
monitoring these populations. But hybridization with domestic cats is probably their number one threat. So any feral cats that get loose, and then, like Angie said, disease, but also changing the genetics because,
Yes.
like I said, domestication takes 50 generations, and we're so far away from that domestication event 10,000 years ago where the genetics of our house cats are completely different in a way, still very similar, but there are some key differences that would not do service to the wild population, right? And then there has been selective breeding, especially in the last few hundred years, of making the naked cats. I don't even know what breed that is. Sorry, I'm not a cat expert with breeds, but the ones with no hair versus
Mhm.
the super fluffy ones.
Mhm.
um you know so anyways, it's not a good thing. Habitat loss and fragmentation, that is a big problem across the
Yeah.
range. And then just human conflict, road kills, all of that. So we do have to monitor these small cats because they're often forgotten. Because, like I said, I can't believe it's taken us 8 years, the podcast, to get to the original cat.
I
We've done wolves
know.
to so many episodes of wolves. We've done lots of
We need
cats, but
more. I
not,
love wolves.
yes, but not the domestic cat. So
Yeah.
Any organizations out there really out there fighting for these small little
Yeah,
kitty
Chris,
cats? Yeah.
great question. I want to give a big shout out this week to Small Wildcat Conservation Foundation, the SWCCF. They can be found at smallcats.org. And the Small Wildcat Conservation Foundation focuses on research, advocacy, and habitat protection. That's a huge one for small wildcat species around the world, including the African wildcat. So check them out. They have a beautiful website showing you all the work that they do. And then their Instagram and Facebook pages, give them a like or a follow. They are always putting up really interesting educational information and sharing with you what you can help do and what they are doing to save all these different and what they are doing to save all these small cats. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We gotta keep
Yes.
watching them. Yep.
Yes. And keep in mind too, just for the record, African wildcats, I would say any non-domestic cat, I'm going to go out there. I know people will be mad at me and I'm okay with that. They do not make good pets. African wildcats or other non-domestic cats should stay in the wild where they belong. They have a lot more natural instincts, and a home environment is just not what they like. And the other thing too is all of us that have domestic cats know how hard it can be to form a bond with some kitty cats.
Yeah.
So take that and then add some multipliers to it, because wildcats are naturally wary and they just don't want to form close bonds with people. So it can make them unpredictable, somewhat aggressive, especially as they mature. And their instinct is to roam and have a territory. So they don't like being confined. They're destructive. I mean, like I said, I've lived with enough domestic cats that are destructive enough, knocking over my plants and water bottles
Yeah.
and peeing all over everything. I couldn't imagine having a wildcat in my house. That just does not sound like fun to me. And they'll spray. So the care is difficult, and I just think that keeping wildcats, African wildcats or hybrids, is just a problem for
No.
conservation. It's just disrupts wild populations. It
And
can
there's
spread
so many
diseases.
unwanted domestic cats. There's so many unwanted domestic cats.
Yes.
So
So
many
many
kittens
want
to
to.
adopt. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing is, Chris and I are all about going to supporting your local animal shelter. And if you want a pet, do your homework, because cats aren't for everybody, dogs aren't for everybody. There's different breeds too. So just because there is a Maine Coon in your local cat shelter, that might not be the best fit for you, because even the different breeds of cats have slightly different personalities or needs.
Always.
So, and definitely with our dogs, we know that there's a lot of different needs between the couch potato pit bull and the Siberian husky that I rescued over here. Uh, so, who's looking at me through the glass window right now, like, are we going for a run? We already
Yes.
did 3 miles today, Storm. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with your cats, your domestic cats, definitely adopt them if it's a good fit for you. But please, please, please vaccinate your cats. Spay and neuter your cats, which, of course, if you get them at a shelter, they will be spayed or neutered, which is why we love to support them. And keep them indoor. Keep them with a bell collar on. Keep them of good weight. I always get in trouble at the vets for my cats being overweight. So we don't want any diabetic cats in our family. So Bear is on a diet.
Well, it reduces their lifespan
It
and their
does,
quality of life.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's
So,
as much as we say we're loving them. And I would just add, to finalize this podcast, is there are organizations regionally. So I remember back in the U.S. Where they are trapping feral cats, getting them spayed or neutered, and then releasing them back into the wild, quote unquote. I remember I saw
mhm.
a bunch of this in Florida and South Carolina and
Yes.
Texas when I was there,
Mhm.
California. So it's not necessarily euthanizing them, but look to wherever you are in the world, see if there's programs where you can help, because that's something you could personally do. Get some cat
Yeah.
traps, and
Help
then
reduce the pet population.
yeah, yeah,
It's a problem
yeah.
everywhere.
Because they are, and if we do cover domestic cats, maybe we'll go more into the data on how they can be detrimental. But today was to celebrate them, celebrate our relationship with them. The African wildcat, Angie, I love them, you love them,
Yeah, so
and
fun.
now the audience will love them. So
Yes.
great job today.
Thank you.